Alrighty, well, look who's here now. There's a Rocky cat up there. Hello, Rocky. Rocky and I had a bit of an argument this morning again. He's quite a character, I'll tell you. He wants me to get up and feed him like at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't really want to do that. And so there's a bit of a war of wills that goes on. And because I dug in my heels today and refused to feed him at 4 o'clock in the morning, I got to stay awake from 4 o'clock in the morning on, with Rocky coming and poking me on the face with his paws and meowing loudly into my ear. And when all that didn't work, I actually at one point got mad and pushed him away from me. And he got up and he went over to his bowl on the table, and he come back and he got up on the little wall here. Yeah, let me see here. You know what we do? We'll turn on the light, maybe, eh? We turn on the light, maybe? There we go. Anyway, he got up on the little wall here after he visited his water bowl. And what he does is he soaks his foot in the water, and then he comes and he does this. And so a nice rain of ice cold water comes down on top of me. That's what he does. Oh, yeah. People say animals are stupid. I don't know. Live with an animal and tell me that animals are stupid. I'll tell you. So that's the time that's the morning that we've had so far anyway. So yeah, that's the morning we've had so far. So yeah. Anyway, this is what he does. It's not the first time he's done that either, you know. He would soak his foot in the water, get his fur on his foot all soaked there with water, and then he'll come and he'll do this. Just do that, and the water just goes up. It's just like an ice cold rain falling on top of me. So, yeah, he's quite the cat, I'll tell you. Yeah, everything he can do to make me uncomfortable until I get up and feed him. So, anyway, I did eventually give in and get up and feed him, so he has been fed. So now he's in a better mood, and I'm in a better mood because he's not tormenting me anymore. But I am tired because I lost a lot of sleep to all that. And, yeah. Anyway, it is now 5:28, and it's Sunday, May the 25th, in the year of our Lord 2025. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you too. There's another thing that I just discovered with my disability payments. My lawyer was going to get a hold of the social worker. Well, not this past week, because this past week she wasn't in the office. The lawyer wasn't in her office, but the week before she was going to get a hold of the social worker and talk to her. Now, there's a situation anyway that I don't want to get into it right now. I will explain it later, but when things are resolved. But I don't want to get into it right now. I don't want to say too much publicly about it. But anyway, she was going to send a message to the social worker last Thursday, the Thursday prior to last Thursday. Anyway, I've just discovered through going through my messages from the workers, from my social worker on the government portal that we communicate through. It looks like I have a different worker all of a sudden. So I don't know what that's about. I don't know. Normally, if they change workers, you get a letter, that tells you not a letter comes over the electronic portal too now as opposed to coming in the mail. But I checked the letters and I haven't received the letter informing me I have a new social worker. But I had sent a message to do with income, and the response came from somebody other than my social worker. I don't know who this person is. But the social worker that I've had isn't responding anymore. There's somebody else responding. Now, there may be some reason for that that I wouldn't know about that has nothing to do with what's going on. Maybe my worker is on vacation at the moment or off on sick leave or something. Who knows? But so another one might be might be doing her stuff for now. I just don't know. Really, I don't know what. So it may not be connected at all. But at this point, I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping to find some stuff out this week. I'm hoping I'll hear from my lawyer this week, or I'll call her this week and touch base with her and let her know, because she may not be aware that there's somebody different now responding when I send messages. So, anyway, I'll make her aware of that if she isn't already aware. And yeah, like I say, I don't know what's going on, but I am hoping to find something out this week anyway to see what's happening. It's bad, the stuff that goes on. The government is not our friend, not even a little bit, and the things they do. It's like I just automatically suspect wrongdoing if it's the government. To me, the government is a Luciferian organization. So now we're living in a fallen world. So I accept that we're going to have a government and that it's necessary to have a government. But to me, the government is not a good thing. It's just a necessary evil. It's the same way I look at the police. I don't like the police. I don't trust the police. But we are going to have police of some sort, Like, I always find it funny when people talk about overthrowing the government or defunding the police. And if you ask them, okay, but then what's the alternative? They haven't thought that far ahead. They're just mad at the government or at the police or whatever. And I mean, look, these entities give us good reason to be mad at them because they're nasty. They really are. They're crooked, and really, they're an evil thing. But what are we going to replace them with? Well, we're going to replace them with something else that's crooked and evil, because that's what we do. So, to fight us, to have a civil war to overthrow an evil entity, only to replace it with a different evil entity, seems kind of pointless to me. But anyway, or okay, we defund the police, we get rid of the police. Okay, good, we got rid of the police. They were no good anyway. What do we replace them with? Something else that's also no good. That's what we'll do. So, like I say, so that's how I look at what's happening now with this disability thing. I just look at it and I say, okay, I know the government's evil. I don't expect that anything they do, they're going to do for my benefit. Really, it's a war. Really, we're at war with them. They're at war with us. Whether we have whether we have a rebellion and overthrow them or not. Which, like I say, I would support the idea of overthrowing the government if I thought that we bring in something better than what we've got. But I'm not so naive as to think we'll do that. So, to me, if we ever did that, it would be a literal war. There'd be bullets and bombs and everything else, because the government isn't going to go away quietly. And so we would have to literally physically force it out. And if we did that, because, the government is evil because of fallen human nature. That's why the government is evil. It's because it's made up of people, and people are fallen. We know that. We know about original sin. We know about the fallen nature of mankind. We know about the fallen nature of the world at this point. And we know, if you are of any spiritual beliefs at all, then you know that Lucifer, or whatever evil force you believe in, because most people believe in good and evil, even if they don't believe in the Christian version of it. They talk about the positive and negative energy, or whatever. Christians call it good and evil, but there's other terminology that also amounts to the same thing that's used by other people who have other spiritual beliefs. So it's pretty much a universal thing that we acknowledge that there's good and evil in the world. And the thing is, right now, we are living in a fallen world. There's good and evil here. And I'm not saying that the police never do any good, and I'm not saying the government never does any good. But generally, these are evil organizations, because they're Luciferian organizations. Because right now it's the devil who controls the system. These are his systems that we're living under. When Jesus went to the desert for 40 days and fasted, and at the end of it, he got tempted by the devil, and the devil tried to trick him. The devil figured, I'll get him when he's weak. He's been fasting and so on. This is a good time, because the devil will do that. The devil will attack you when you're weak. And the devil isn't exactly a principled fighter. He don't follow any sort of rule book. The devil is a win at all costs kind of an individual. And so he figured this is a good time to attack Jesus. So he went to see Jesus in the desert, and he tried a few different things to get Jesus to sin, and none of it worked. And then at the end of it, he put it all out there in front of Jesus, all the world's kingdoms, all the kingdoms of the world. He said, this can all be yours. He was just like the Johnny Olsen on The Price is Right. All this can be yours if the price is right. Well, that's what the devil did with Jesus. He said, all this can be yours. All you got to do is bow down and worship me. Just bow down and worship me, and I'll give you all this, all the world's kingdoms. Jesus said, I'm not interested. Go away. Stop bothering me. I don't want any of that. But what he didn't do is he didn't say those aren't yours to give. He didn't say, hey, that's not your property. You can't give that. Like, look, I own a truck. If I want to, I can give my truck away to somebody. But I can't give somebody else's truck away to somebody. I can give the truck I own away. But I can't give the truck that you own away, because that's your truck. You see what I'm saying? The devil can't give away property that isn't his. And Jesus would have called him out for it. Jesus called the devil out for lies in other situations, where the devil lied, and Jesus basically said that's just a lie. That's not true. That's a lie. And so Jesus probably would have said, you're lying. Like, look, you don't own that. Even if I wanted it, you couldn't give it to me because it's not yours. But Jesus didn't do that. He never denied Lucifer's ownership of it. What he did is he said, I don't want it. That's all. You keep your junk there. I don't want any of that. That's what he said. And basically. And so these are the devil's systems. This is the devil's kingdom here that we're living in right now. And so we got to expect, corrupt practices and things like that. And of course, the people who work within those systems are often under a lot of pressure um, to do corrupt things. And that's what we're seeing, is we're seeing an awful lot of that, especially lately, because the spiritual war has ramped up. Hostilities have increased. And that'll happen as we get closer to the end of it all. You know, uh, you'll see that in a war, in any kind of a war, when one side is losing and they know they're going to lose, they'll just throw everything they've got at the other side. Like, we may lose, but we're going to fire every bullet and we're going to drop every bomb we've got first. We're going to cause as much misery and havoc and death and destruction to our opponent as we can before we surrender. We're going to go out in a blaze of glory, basically. That's what happens oftentimes in a war. During World War II, when the Japanese knew they were going to lose, they didn't stop. They just kept coming, and the United States got fed up and dropped a couple of nuclear bombs on them. That's finally what made them stop. And like I say, this is what happens in a war. So we got to expect an increase in hostilities right now. And so all this stuff that's being done by government, to each of us individually and to society as a whole, because we're all experiencing one way or another some crap that's being done by government. They're attacking farmers, they're attacking small businessmen. They're making it harder to have a vehicle, they're making it harder to have a place to live. They make it harder to have a place to live, and then they criminalize any activity related to homelessness. So they basically say, if you're homeless, anything you do to survive is a criminal act. And we're going to fix it so you will be homeless, because we're going to make it unaffordable to have a place to live. But I'm experiencing that now. And this is what they do, So like I say, there's no good in any of that. It's all evil. It's all hateful, completely lacking in compassion kind of stuff. And even now, you take the massive immigration and whatnot. Now you get called a racist if you question why it is the borders are being thrown open and people are allowed just to come in without being vetted and so on. Well, what I say to that is, if you still have a home, if you're one of those who still actually has a roof over your head, and are still living as a law-abiding, respectable citizen, as opposed to a criminal by circumstance, like a lot of us are now. If you are still able to live as a respectable person, and not as a criminal, basically, which, if you're homeless, you're automatically a criminal under this system. Would you throw your door open and just let anybody off the street walk into your house? You don't know who you'd be getting. You don't know what they'd be wanting to do there. Are they coming into my house to rob me, to rape me, to kill me? Well, what are they doing? Or do they just want to have a nice visit with me? I mean, or do they want to do some yard work, or what, like, what's going on? What's this person here for? I mean, nobody in their right mind just throws their door open and allows everybody to come in, because you don't know who you're getting, That's the whole thing. You don't know who you're getting. And that's why you tend to vet who you allow into your house. Um, Now, this stuff is not being done out of compassion for the people that are being allowed in. It's being done to destabilize the systems and to destabilize the country, to overwhelm the welfare systems and the healthcare systems and the police and the housing market and everything else. This is why and the job market and so on. This is why it's being done. It's not being done as a kindness. These people are being used. They're being used to destabilize the country. The same is true with all the LGBTQ stuff. The government is no friend to the LGBTQ community. The reason this is being done again is to destabilize society. It's an attack on the traditional family. It's an attack on Christian values. That this country and the United States and many other countries were built upon. It's an attack on all that. It's a destabilizing thing, and yeah, it's an act of war, is what it is, and those people are being used. And the funny thing is, there's a certain group of those people who recognize that they're being used too, and that don't like it. Some of them have been quite outspoken about it. Because what's happening too is old resentments and old prejudices are coming back because people are resenting, and a lot of people, they don't look beyond the surface, so they don't really realize what's happening. Now, I look beyond the surface. I object to all these festivals and parades and to indoctrinating children into all this stuff in the schools and whatnot. I object to all of that, but I don't, and then I'll be accused of being a bit hateful bigot. Well, I don't object to all of that because I hate the LGBTQ. That's not what's going on. I don't actually hate those people. I object to it because I see it for what it is. It's a destabilization of society. It's being done to destabilize society. It's being done also because to take God out of everything. And if you don't have God involved, you're going to fail. I've been at jobs. I'll tell you this. I've had this happen a few times. I've been at jobs where I've been working for a person. There's a few different people I've worked for where this has happened. And had a really bad day at work. I mean, like the person I was working for was being really unreasonable. Now, this does happen sometimes. Sometimes it'll be a person who's normally a very easy to deal with, reasonable person. But for whatever reason, they'll be just that day, they're having a bad day, and I happen to be there, and I'm working for them, and they're going to take it out on me. And I have had this happen. And it's nothing to do with me. It's because something else has gone on in their life that they're dealing with, and they're just not in a good frame of mind. And so I show up, and guess who gets dumped all over? Guess who gets every little thing I do then is wrong, You're not doing this right. You're not doing that right. Well, what would you do that for? Why are you shouldn't be doing that. All stuff that I would normally be doing at a job, all of a sudden, all of it's wrong. And they're just watching me and looking for reasons to find fault. And I've had this happen. And what I do when that happens is I don't disrespect the person. I don't argue with them or, cuss them out. Occasionally, I'll say a little something. If they tell me I'm doing something wrong, I'll try to explain to them why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. Or I'll say, well, I didn't realize that, or whatever, I will do a little of that sometimes, but I don't get into a big fight with them. And if I see it escalating into a big fight, at that point I just shut up, you know. But what I do is I'll say a prayer. And I'll basically, what I'll do is I'll say, ask God to please give me the strength to get through the day, because it seems like it's shaping up to be kind of a rough day. To please give me the wisdom to say the right things and to do the right things and to do the job to that person's satisfaction, even though it seems like that's going to be an impossibility on that specific day. And please give me, the strength, the moral fortitude and the strength to treat this person with the respect that they deserve, and to hold my temper in check, even if I am frustrated by what's happening right now, just not to lose my temper, not to say anything that would be disrespectful to this person or whatever. And I asked God basically to give me wisdom to deal with this person, to give me um, enough moral fiber that I don't respond in a nasty way, that I don't say something awful, hurtful, or whatever. And so my temper doesn't get the better of me, and I don't get frustrated and angry and just say something stupid, something I shouldn't say just because I'm mad, and I let my emotions get the better of me. I ask God to give me the wisdom not to do that. And I also ask God to lift whatever burden that person is carrying on their heart, to lift that off of them so that they might have some peace. And virtually every time I found myself in that situation, and I've said that sort of a prayer, it's like a switch gets flipped. The person becomes they've just become how they normally are. Because the people I work for them, generally, all the people I work for really are good people. Like, I don't have any people I work for who are just assholes, you know. And if I was working for somebody who was just generally an asshole, I wouldn't be working for them for long. Even though I need work, those are jobs I don't want, you know, because this person's never going to be happy. And they'll spread the word that they're unhappy. They'll tell everybody how unhappy they are. And it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to win with a person like that. And so not all customers are good customers. You don't want, you know, you don't want somebody who's going to badmouth you all over town and cause you to end up losing other customers, potentially other clients. And so who would be good clients, because they say, oh God, we don't want that guy around. Did you hear what George said about him? We don't want him around, or whatever. I don't have any customers named George. That's why I use that name. So that's not a reference to anybody I know or anything like that. But the point I'm trying to make is, I pretty much I get that I know the people I work for pretty well, and I know that they're good, solid, decent people. And so when somebody is acting that way toward me at work, and I'm not talking about correcting me for something I've done that I shouldn't have done, if I have screwed up, and I do screw up sometimes, I mean, I'm human. I screw up. I don't intend to, but I sometimes do. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just being real nitpicky and being like up in my face, basically, constantly, which I have had happen a few times, you know. But I know when that happens, it's because that person is dealing with something that has nothing to do with me, you know. And that's why I'll say that prayer, and I'll ask that that burden be lifted off their heart, and that I be given the wisdom to deal with that person properly, and to show them respect and so on, even though I'm getting frustrated by the situation, and it would be natural for me to be disrespectful and to say, yeah, well, you know what you can do, or whatever. I asked the Lord to take to help me to hold my temper, even when that person isn't holding theirs, you know. And it does work. Like, you do that and you see an immediate change. This has happened to me more than once, so I know that it's a thing, you know. And so there's some intervention. There's spiritual intervention there. There's energy, call it energy or whatever you want. Say, well, you put some, that was a negative. There was negative energy there. You put out some positive energy, and that canceled the negative energy. Well, some people would say that. People who are into the New Age movement would say that, for example, who don't believe in the Christian God would say that. But, there's a recognition, though, on their part that there's positive and negative there, and that when somebody is exhibiting a lot of negative energy, it's probably because they've recently had an experience where somebody has directed a bunch of negative energy at them. And the thing is, energy has a way of spreading, whether it be negative or positive, and it has a way of growing, whether it be negative or positive. So, like, if that person had just had a bunch of negative energy directed at them by some other person or by some situation they're dealing with, maybe they're having a health issue, which is common with older people. Maybe they're having an issue with another person, maybe some loved one, somebody in their family, maybe their spouse, maybe a neighbor, who knows? Maybe they're having issues with the government. We all seem to be having those issues these days. Maybe they're having issues with somebody, some crook who they've hired to do a job and has ripped them off, or who knows, who isn't me, somebody else who's done them wrong, and they can't take it out on that person, so they're going to take it out on me. It could be any number of things. But see, somebody's directed some negative energy their way, or some situation has brought negative energy into their life, and now they're going to direct that at me. Well, I have a choice then. I can either participate and cause that negative energy to grow and expand, and I can either put that negative energy back onto them, which is going to cause it to grow and expand, and it's going to cause a conflict between myself and that person that doesn't need to be and that shouldn't be, when there's no good reason for there to be conflict there. Or it's going to, you know, or I'm going to then all day long put up with that, and then I'm going to go out into the world and I'm going to take it out on somebody else. And I'm going to do to somebody else what that person just did to me. And so the negative energy is going to expand that way and grow. And the only way to get around that is to bring some positive energy in. Now, I believe in the God of the Bible, so I pray to the God of the Bible, because that's who I believe in. That's who I believe is in charge. So I say, okay, God of the Bible, you're in charge. You control all the energy. So I'm asking you to bring some positive energy here. I'm asking you to lift this weight of negative energy off this person's heart. I'm asking you to lighten their burden, you know. And in so doing, I'm asking you to lighten my burden. And while I'm at it, I'm asking you to help me to overcome my base human nature, my corrupt and fallen human nature, and which would be inclined to respond to negativity with more negativity. I'm asking you to help me to overcome that so that I may respond to this negativity with positivity, so that I may show this person the respect that I know they deserve, and that I may still do a good job for this person, and so that I may so that I may basically overcome the inclination to meet negative energy with more negative energy, basically, you know. And so that I may not take it personally, that I may understand there's probably something else going on that I know nothing about, you know. And it's happened a few times that after the fact I found out just by chance that there was something else going on that had nothing to do with me. But because I was there and the negative energy had come in, you know, the devil was there basically. He'd come in. So I had to ask God to basically boot the devil's ass on out of here so that I can do my job and so that I can do it properly and so that I can conduct myself properly in this situation, you know. Anyway, it does work. Say what you like, it does work. You say these kinds of prayers. And especially, I think, if it's an unselfish prayer in the sense that you don't just ask that you be given the ability to deal with this person who's being difficult at the moment, but you also ask, even though you may be frustrated with that person at that moment in time, because you do feel like you're being treated unfairly by them. I think when you ask that that person's burden be lifted, it shows that you're trying to understand that person and that you understand that that person is not a bad person. This person isn't evil, but you know, they're dealing with something evil. There's something has happened that they're dealing with, and they're carrying a burden on their shoulders. They're carrying a burden that's weighting them down. They have you know, their heart is troubled by something. And so if you ask God, please lighten their burden, please take this trouble off their heart, and you show love and concern for that person, you know, God sees that. And, you know, God will help you. But, and that's how I'm looking at what's happening now with the government in my situation with the disability. Um, I think that there is evil behind it. I'm not saying that the people themselves are naturally evil. I don't think my social worker or my former social worker, whoever she is a naturally evil person. But I do believe there's some evil has occurred there. And I believe that the government now is basically circling the wagons, you know, and they're doing things to minimize whatever damage may be done to them by this situation. Even if it means that it would maximize the damage done by me, they'll do that because that's just how it goes, you know. But see, I understand all that, and so I'm not going to be mad at anybody. But I am still, I got to admit, I don't like the government. I don't trust the government. And so I'm approaching the situation with a degree of caution. I'm leaving it in the hands of my lawyer. Like when the fact that a different person answered my last message, I could have sent a message saying, "Who are you and why are you answering my messages?" But I didn't do that because I have a lawyer working on this situation. So I'm keeping my communications with those people to the minimum. And what I'll do is I'll inform my lawyer of what I've discovered. Maybe she's already aware of it. Maybe she isn't. I don't know. But in case she isn't aware of it, I'll inform her of it. And then she can look into that. You know, she can do that. If she feels that it's necessary, if she feels that there's some significance there or there's some importance behind that, she will look into it. And who knows where that will lead. But wherever it leads, the lawyer is equipped to handle it, and I'm not. You know, there's only so much I can do. I could send a message like that back saying, "Hey, who are you? And why are you answering my," you know, but I'm not going to do that because that wouldn't be wise. But I will find out, I will find out who this person is, and I'll probably find out why they're answering the messages. I might not, but I probably will. I'll find out something anyway, and I should know more this week. But and when this situation is over, I'll update. I'll tell you the full story. I just, like I say, right now I have to be kind of careful. But anyway, yeah, I'm glad I have a lawyer working on it. And again, you pray about these things, and then the positive stuff comes in and cancels out the negative, because see, good will always win over bad. In the end, it always does. That doesn't mean the bad won't kick your ass for a while, though, because it will. But in the end, the good will prevail, and that's what you have to cling to when the bad is giving you a real run for your money. You have to cling to the idea that the good will prevail. That's all. All right. Anyway, good morning, everybody. I've got a kind of a naughty kitty cat here at the bottom of my bed. He's normally a good cat. I shouldn't say he's naughty, because he really isn't. What he is, though, he's very smart and he's very strategic. And he knows what he's doing, you know. And so he wanted to have his way. And basically what it was is, you want to sleep and I want to eat. Well, guess what? You're not going to sleep until I eat. And that's what he did, and he succeeded in that too. He kept me awake. So, like I say, he's not stupid. Rocky is not a stupid individual. In fact, I'm probably the stupid one. I should have just got up and fed him when he wanted me to, then he would have let me go back to sleep. But I decided I was going to be stubborn. So here I am, awake and tired at 6 o'clock in the morning. All right, I should just be waking up now. No, I shouldn't have been awake the last 2 hours, but anyway, it is what it is. I love the little guy, and the fact that he does stuff like that, even I get a kick out of him, because it tells me how smart he really is. Don't wage war with Rocky. I'll tell you, you'll lose every time. Anyway, there he is. He's having a sleep now. See, I'll be away working all day, and I'll be tired, and Rocky will be here sleeping. Yeah, he's no fool. Anyway, good morning, everybody. We'll see you later.